All right. I guess it's Wednesday, so we are
It
nine
is.
days away from the
Monday.
start of the WFP season, which I think, yesterday at the end of the show, we went through a few just one-liners, one-worders that people had in response to a simple question I put up, which is one word of how you're feeling coming up on this WFP event. And the responses were widely varied, from people who could care less to people who were disgusted about it, to people who I would say were apathetic, and then on the other side, people who are extremely excited, enthusiastic, and eager to see what this thing is all about. Today we have, of course, me and Patrick. We also have Maysa back with us today. How have you been doing recently, Maysa?
Good. Busy. I'm excited for next week.
Yes. So Maysa is actually coming with us to Indianapolis. She's going to be on the ground for B.Friendly Fitness. Patrick and I will be working with WFP and the competition there. So she's going to help us out, write some articles, talk to some athletes. We had some help from her in Miami, and she's written for us in the past. So she's coming on. Mike, I'm actually pretty interested in that. So a couple of weeks ago, they sent me the runners, but I think this version, I didn't have any idea of this, is actually the prototype version. So I'm pretty curious if there's any differences. Maybe we can talk about that. Anyway, that's completely off topic, but nice to see you, Mike. Yes. So we are not going to have much time to do shows like this next week, or any time, I don't think, to do shows like this next week. So we're getting everything in now. So this is our men's preview. I took a look at the 50 athletes who, as of now, are listed to compete at the competition next weekend in 2 different divisions. And I just want to do a quick review of what the difference between the pros and the challengers are before we do anything else, because there was someone asking on the post that we put up about an hour ago. And usually if one person is asking, that means that there's 100 people who don't know the thing. So I do know that this is something that people will continue to comprehend and understand, and likely more so once competition actually happens. But just so you understand what's going on, next weekend there's going to be, for both men and women, 2 separate divisions competing. The pro division consists of the signed 20 athletes plus the top 10 qualifiers from the online challenger that happened in March. The secondary division is called the Challenger Division, and the next 20 ranked athletes from that same qualifier will compete in the Challenger Division on both the men's and women's side. As far as the distinctions between the 2 divisions, they are not, the winner of the Challenger Division, no matter how good they do, cannot usurp or do better than the last place person in the Pro Division. And as far as the season goes, points are awarded 1 through 50. So if you get last place in the pros, you get 270 points. First place in the challenger gets 250. And then, they go up and down from there. So everyone who shows up there and competes will have points after tour stop 1, but the challenger division's points are capped at 250, where the pro division's points are capped at 500. There's also some prize money available. Everybody in the pro division will earn at least $1,500. The winner of this competition will earn $30,000, and then everyone else will fall in between. If you're in the challenger division, the top 5 athletes all get $1,000. At the bottom of the pro division, there's like chunks of 5. It's like the bottom 5 all get $1,500. The next 5 all get maybe $2,000 or $2,500. So the top 5 of the challenger division cannot earn more than the bottom 5 of the pro division, but there still is at least that $1,000 available for the top 5 finishers in the challenger field. So that's my 2-minute synopsis of the difference between the pros and the challengers. And hopefully it's helpful for some of you.
Somewhat. Hopeful. Yeah, but you mentioned that little poll that you did. Maysa, how did you answer that poll at all?
No, I didn't. I saw it, but I didn't answer. I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Why are you excited?
I think I have very high expectations and high hopes just based on what they've put out, the branding, the marketing, how they've structured everything. And I'm really hopeful that they execute as well as they say they're going to. So I'm excited to see that.
And you'll get a chance to see it in person, right? And there's, of course, when you're consuming, competitive competitions, there's an on-site experience, and then there's the viewer's experience for anyone who can't be there for any particular reason. So it'll be fun to get that perspective on site, and then of course, those of us that are there, we can go back and watch afterwards and experience the broadcast a little bit. But for many of you, you'll be watching from afar, and I mean, I personally, at least, am super interested to hear and get feedback from people who are watching at home about what that experience is like as well. So there's obviously a bunch of experience and also some new faces that are involved in the forward-facing talent side of things. And so, it's going to be, I think, cool and new on several fronts, and hopefully enjoyable. I think that the team that's working to put these competitions together, these events together, have done a lot of work behind the scenes to try to account for the experience of people that fall into many different buckets, from the on-site to the remote, from the community or competitive divisions to the spectators and vendors on site, the media that's coming to cover it, and everyone in between. So.
And I think also, while like WFP is new, a lot of the people on the team have such experience running large scale events like this that it's not, even though it is new, it's not really new to a lot of the people behind the scenes.
Yeah, there's like best practices in their specific areas that they can apply. And, just working at so many different competitions over the last couple of years, every competition organizer is different in how outside call it. Some people are, very kind of stuck in their ways, and they have a way that they like to do it, and they're not really willing to budge on it. Other people love to get a bunch of insight from those people, and usually just let them kind of run autonomously in their lanes. And most competitions are somewhere in the middle of that, where they'll take the advice or the constructive criticism and then kind of fuse it with the variables that only they know about operating their unique competition. So I think my experience has been that WFP is definitely in the middle somewhere. They're super open-minded to the input from those, but they also have a vision of the way that they want to produce it. So that's certainly an element and aspect of this thing that's going to be revealed to anyone who decides to be there or consume it virtually next weekend. So, Patrick, how do you want to do this today?
Well, kind of before we start, kind of preface off what you said or continue on that. I had a chance before we went on to watch Rich Froning's podcast that he just did. And on that podcast, towards the end, they talk about the podcast that never was. And basically what it was is kind of, not to ruin it for you, but Saxon and Will drove over from Nashville to Cookeville to talk with Rich. And Rich was like, hey, let's do a podcast. And those guys, for whatever reason, they decided they didn't feel comfortable, I guess what Rich said, with doing a podcast. But he said they had a really great conversation. And what Rich said, it cleared a lot of things up for him. And one thing that Rich was able to say is like, and Angela even agreed, is like, the sport itself, the WFP event, was never, their intention was not to compete against CrossFit. Everyone says like, hey, they scheduled during semifinals. Well, events cannot be hijacked by CrossFit. It's just, we all know CrossFit ends up releasing their, I think they released semifinal dates, in January, February. But at the time, I guess Rich said it on the podcast, I guess the WFP released their schedule in October. So you just can't sit there and wait for CrossFit. You have a business to run, a thing to do, something to launch. You got to have, and that's the first thing you start off with. I mean,
well, that's nothing new.
Yeah,
it's not just WFP. You and I have talked about this many, many times with many, many competitions. People who run or organize competitions around the world have always been in this situation where they have to try their best to guess what CrossFit's going to do. And in some cases, they have looked at the patterns from the past, planned for their event in the future, and then totally been more or less screwed by the fact that CrossFit put something out there 6 or 12 months later than they did. And that's obviously going to take the priority of that time of year. Now, if you're choosing to run an event in February, March, or in May, June, you know that you're risking an overlap with a semifinal season. If you choose to run an event in the first or second week of August, you know that you're risking an overlap with the CrossFit Games. Those have been fairly predictable. But we've often mentioned that to get venues is one of the biggest hurdles for competitions when they're scheduling something. And if you want to have nice venues, well, guess what? A lot of people want to have those venues. So there's not just infinite amount of weekends available, and you can't book them the last minute. So every person who wants to run a competition anywhere has to make those predictive values. What many people in the media have suggested over time is why doesn't CrossFit get further ahead in their planning? And I've talked about this with with disc golf, and and look, the WFP is already planning dates for next year. Is CrossFit doing that? And if CrossFit's doing that and WFP is doing that, when are those going to be announced? And it's like one of them is going to announce it first. When Wodapalooza decided to do SoCal, they dropped the date on the calendar 14 months before it happened. When they decided to switch from January to March for their main event, Miami, they announced that 14 months before it happened. Can we ever get to the point where whatever this season looks like, whether it's the game season or the WFP, where they're announcing their year for 2026 12 months ahead of time, or at least 8 or 10 months ahead of time? And if that becomes also not just earlier, but consistent, then a lot of other competitions can, okay, well, we know that they're going to announce this 9 months ahead of time, and we're going to wait for that before we, act.
And the last thing I'll say is, and Rich agreed with them. And, one of the things he brought up to you is like, have they talked to CrossFit? Has anyone reached out to them? And, I guess he said, Will Saxon said they've reached out, and CrossFit didn't want to talk to them at all. And Rich was like, I totally agree that. And everyone's like, yeah. And they even said, working with CrossFit is a difficult thing, HQ. And it was really cool. I mean, just hearing their take, and then especially on the heels of you kind of being there and kind of give them a base of just kind of a basic understanding of, or at least what and then having those guys.
Far better to have Will and Saxon there. I mean, they're way more intimately involved with everything that's going on in WFP than I am. If they're in the close to it. So I'm sure Rich was able to ask him a bunch of stuff and get better answers than I could provide.
Yeah, he said it was a really great conversation, and I think the plan is after the first event, having those guys come over and actually do a podcast with them and stuff like that. But that's just really cool. But yeah, if you get a chance, watch that. The whole show is really good. Actually, they talk about the team semifinals and the individual semifinals, online semifinals. So it's a good show, typical of Rich and their podcast. So, but I just want to bring that up before we kind of dive into that. So, since we're on the subject of WFP, and there still are a lot of questions, and kind of, you have a lot of people kind of saying they could care less or anything like that. But now it looks like someone like Rich, who seems like Rich is kind of taking the lead when it comes to CrossFit in the community, and he's that guy that seems to be willing to have those conversations with anybody, if they're willing to have the conversation with him. So just throw that out there.
We'll use CJ's question here as a little transition point. Challengers are hoping to earn enough points between the first 2 tour stops to make it to Copenhagen. Yes, 100%. And even though there's the pro division and the challenger division, those 10 qualifiers in the pro division are competing against the challengers for those 10 spots that you're referring to have the chance to go to Copenhagen. And there's more points available there, double the points available there, and then essentially the goal for anyone who's aspiring to get a pro card is to be in the top 20 total points earners after Indianapolis, Maysa, and Copenhagen. But for the challengers, you have to get there first.
So let's dive right into it. This post was put up about an hour ago. Brian basically predicted the finish from the first pro tour stop, 1 through 30 for the pro division, and then 1 through 20 for the challenger division. Brian, you want to start with the challengers first, I guess? Or do you want to start with the pro?
Whatever you want. I'm
Yeah, we'll work our way backwards. So
okay.
Challenger division, like Brian said, 20, the top 20 athletes that accepted their invitation to compete in Challenger division, like Brian said, with the top five, all of them earn points. Top five actually earn an additional $1,000, and as well as points. And this list has kind of changed a lot because we've had some people based off the real top 20 after the qualifier. We had a lot of people decline their invites, mostly from Europe, because it's the same weekend as a French Throwdown. Some just didn't, it's just to come over from Europe or anywhere else in the world to Indianapolis. It costs a lot of money, and there's no guarantee you finish on top five. So here's the bottom 10 of that 20.
Yeah, and a couple things. I don't really think we've talked about this a little bit previously. I don't really think all the athletes, some of the coaches, managers, and certainly a lot of the fans even really fully grasp what season is about. And obviously, we've already explained a little bit more this morning. But to get back to that point, these guys that are in the Challenger division, they are in contention for Copenhagen. Like they're good. Some of them are going to earn points that aren't going to be very different than the people that are at the bottom end of the pro field. And then there's going to be all these variables that take place starting with this week. So first of all, there's already 2 men from this field of 20 that have withdrawn from the competition. And WFP has announced that previously that they'll be sending out backfill invites to try to keep that division as full as possible. If a pro withdraws for any reason, signed or qualifier, they can just bump up the next athlete from the Challenger division. But for the challengers, there's not like a third division that's on site, so they'll be sending out an invite and trying to get this division as full as possible. My personal feeling is that because the individual semifinals is happening this weekend, that we're likely to get more athletes over the next week that will potentially withdraw from this division because there was no registration fee. There's no real penalty for pulling out. And look, competing on back-to-back weekends in this sport is not only really hard, it's not even necessarily advisable for most athletes. So don't be surprised if some of this changes a little bit, but based on the names that we had when I sent this to Patrick on Monday, these are the guys I put in the bottom 10. And most of these guys are just, I would say, the least familiar or experienced athletes here. If I've seen these people compete, it's either on teams in competitions that I would call tier 3 or below, or in the teenage division in cases like Caden Hogan. So these guys are people who clearly did well in the online qualifier to get here, but they have to sort of earn it for me and prove it to me that they can excel in this field, and that's why they're in the bottom 10.
Yeah. And is there anyone here, Maysa? Is there anyone here you're familiar with that you want to maybe spotlight or give some background on?
Not a ton. I mean, like Brian said, these are like a lot of these bottom 10. It's like you're going to have to wait and see. They don't have a lot of live competition experience for us to go off of.
Mm-hmm. Brian, how about you? Is there a certain athlete there that you want to spotlight or say, hey, this is someone to keep an eye on that could potentially compete? You have them in the bottom 10, but they can easily finish top 5 in the Challenger division.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick Anapolsky is a very interesting athlete to me. He often does pretty well in the Open. He obviously did well in this qualifier, but he almost always competes on a team at the most meaningful stages of competition. So he's super easy to recognize. If he hasn't changed his hair, he's got dreadlocks, and he's a very, very nice, very educated guy when it comes to this sport. But I just haven't seen him in many individual competitions. So he's particularly interesting to me because this is going to be, I think, the best quality of field I've seen him compete live against as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Caden Hogan before. He kind of went viral with some moments as a 14 or maybe 15-year-old in a deadlift in, I believe, 2021 games as a teen athlete. He's grown since then. I mean, if you watch that video and then look at him now, he's a man. He's a man now. I believe he's still a training think tank athlete there in Georgia. We see him in a lot of the regional competitions. Just getting experience. I used a picture of Robert Yates here. He's made it to the semifinals twice. Last year he was at Syndicate Crown, I believe. I'm trying to remember where he finished, but this year he is a part of that proven team out of Nashville, which I believe they currently are in a game spot. They finished top 15 in the world, and so he's a part of that team along with Ava George, Anthony Yim, and Carson Wolf. So, this is he did that last weekend. Hopefully, he feels good enough to come to Indianapolis and show us what he can do as an individual.
Yeah, he competes a lot in the South Carolina, North Carolina area. We know there's a very competitive community down there. So he's an experienced competitor. And he has, like you said, been at 2 semifinals previously. He's finished towards the bottom of those fields. So if you're like, well, I don't remember seeing him, that's probably why. But we know that especially in North America East, just to get to those semifinals is extremely difficult to do. So Robert is quite talented, and like you said, he's got some experience on the team sides, individual sides. He's certainly an interesting one to keep an eye on that probably a lot of people don't know too much about.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing too, because this guy right now essentially has punched his game to the ticket to the games, but now he gets to participate in a second season as an individual. So
you know what I was waiting for?
What?
Because I put up 2 days ago that thing. Would you rather have WFP Tour card in 2026 or qualify for the 2025 CrossFit Games? And I thought for sure somebody would. It wasn't an option, but would write both. But nobody did that.
Yeah.
Well, why not do both?
Yeah. I mean, he's not the only one that we're going to see on this list that's punched their ticket to the games, but I think it's pretty cool for these like team athletes to kind of do an individual competition as well. So that way they get the best of both seasons. Obviously, we'll talk about someone kind of a higher level, in the pro division that's is doing something similar. But yeah, so that's our the bottom 10, or the qualifying 10. Like Brian says, this list might change. There are some people who Brian has alluded to that are dropping out, or could drop out. Hopefully, they can still backfill. I mean, and have the full 20 slotted 20 people. So we'll move on to the next. Go ahead, Maysa.
Going off of what you were saying about like people who have already punched their ticket, or even if they haven't, like, and they're doing individual and they're going to a semifinal, I think it'll be really interesting to see. A lot of times when people go to competitions like Wadapalooza or different things that are not a qualifier for anything, they often talk about competing differently, right? So they'll like let the wheels fall off or go all out or try different things. So like athletes who are just doing WFP, like maybe Laura Horvath or Chandler Smith, or some people who have said they're just doing that, might compete differently than people who have qualified, or this is like a second season, like they're doing 2 different things. So they have multiple options, where we might see some people really like test different strategies or go all out, or see if they like set really crazy paces and see if they can hold on when they're competing.
I think you really bring up a good point, because we haven't really looked at the programming for this for the events, and maybe that's something we can do here at the end. But it'll be different for Maysa. So if there's a pro athlete who says, okay, these aren't really my jam, I don't want to kill myself on any one of these events. I'm just going to try to stay steady and consistent, so that way I can have decent amount of points. And who knows, maybe Maysa, the program would be more set up for me. So it'll go from competition to competition as well. So
Every time you say Mesa, I'm like very confused, but
I know. Well, I was saying Tucson for the longest time, but Brian always gets upset at me. He's like, "It's Mesa, not Tucson. It's in Arizona." So yeah. So moving on. Oops, sorry, that was wrong. My bad. Oh, again, my bad. Wrong number. Okay, all right. To the top 10, and now, where's that bottom 10? Some maybe not some familiar name. Now we get to top 10, where we do see quite a few familiar names that we're used to seeing, not only high in the semifinals, but also games level athletes, multiple games athletes in this list of athletes. Brian, take it away.
Well, another thing about this group of athletes here is, with the exception of Victor Lungdahl, none of them have crazy travel that's required to get here. Many of these live
Mhm.
within driving distance or in the up and down the East Coast somewhere. Guys like Tudor will be coming from out west. I don't actually know where Roldan is. Right? Is he in Invictus still? I don't know.
I think
But
he's, yeah.
It might be out of
but
Southern California.
But the lists in general here, you have not only the most well-credentialed athletes relative to the bottom 10, but also very little sort of barrier to entry in terms of just getting there. Like, this is a fairly easy trip for most of these guys. And I think that definitely factors in. So when you kind of start layering the previous competition results along with ease of travel and experience navigating that, I think a lot of things are sort of shifting towards being you're likely to see the names that you'd expect, which are most of these, filtering towards the top. I think that I'm not, like, I feel like I've kind of a strong divide between this and the 10 we just looked at. But amongst this 10, I think this is actually a pretty wide open conversation. A lot of these guys have a skill set that would allow them to excel in the kind of time domain and style of events that we see. I do think in general that this set of programming is going to tilt a little bit towards the stronger athlete. There's a weightlifting element in all 6 of the movements, and it factors in differently, or all 6 of the workouts, and it factors in differently in each of those.
Mhm.
But when you look at the people that I've picked towards the top, Jorge, Jack, and Tudor are all pretty strong. They can move odd object stuff. They have the veteran savvy. Even though they're kind of at different ages, they all have a good amount of at least training age and experience. So I kind of, between those guys and the next group, I kind of ended up tilting towards the stronger, more power based athletes.
Mhm.
Kind of like what we did in the other 10. Maysa, 1 or 2 athletes that you kind of want to, that kind of catches your eye out of this group of 10.
Yeah, number 7, Max Krieg. I saw him live in Miami, and prior to that, didn't really know that much about him and was pretty impressed. He did very well at Wadapalooza in that field. And I think, like you said, like, bigger guy, really strong. A lot of the workouts have weightlifting in them. Um, I'm interested that you put Jorge first. He wouldn't have been first on this list for me. I think my general take on Jorge since he won the team games is, like, he has all the components to be a very, very good athlete. They just have never come together. And I think when they do, he's going to be really good. And I keep waiting for the competition because he's like really strong, really skilled, like pretty aerobic. I just feel like there's combinations of movements that don't go well. So maybe WFP, with being like newer, a little less pressure, might be the moment. And then I think it's funny that 3, 4, 5 are all the students that were on the team together. It'll be
Oh,
interesting.
good
They're all
stuff.
the engineers, right? Aren't they
Yeah.
all 3 engineering? Or I know Jack and one of the others engineering, one something else, but they're all like students or master's students right now. Um, which is kind of cool that they're able to be doing this and be full-time students.
Who would you pick to win this?
That's
Not so
tough.
easy.
No, it's not. And I'm not like dogging you for your pick. I was just like, I feel like uh he hasn't put all the pieces together. And I hope he does, because I think he's a very good athlete. Do you know what I mean by that? That he has like all the components, but they don't show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The thing about this list is, uh, most of them haven't really won a competition of this caliber.
Hmm.
So, they're usually fighting for a podium at best, fighting for a qualification spot to games at a semifinal at best. Some of them have gotten those 2 things, but I don't know that any of these guys have won a competition that's as maybe difficult as this one is to
Yeah.
win. And so I think
Well,
there's go ahead.
And then I think, like, with Jorge, he I believe is doing the CrossFit season as well, correct?
yeah.
So like
Yeah.
there's potentially less pressure because there's multiple things than someone like Jack Farlow, who's come out and said, I'm only doing WFP. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays into how they attack the workouts.
Now, sorry, I was looking at some of the comments here. Well, yeah, Jorge, along with some of these other athletes, they'll be coming fresh off, and this is something we talked about yesterday on our
Yeah.
Wadland recap. Was like they're going to come directly from competing in what I think is a really good and grueling in-person semifinal, right into the Challenger division. Now, granted, the Challenger division, we didn't really talk about this too much. The weights are lighter.
There was a lot of people were not happy about that.
And, and I don't blame them. And I kind of like to say, like, I mean, you got to look at these guys. You wouldn't, if it was a semifinal, you wouldn't be putting the last two heats. You wouldn't be giving them, better, longer time caps or lighter weight. The test is the test, especially if you're trying to measure these. These are the potential next guys up, and the points are still there. But Brian, what you kind of brought up is like none of these guys have won like a major competition like this level. But I kind of look at this, and you know what? I'm getting vibes from when I see this like group of 20 men. I'm getting RX Division Wadapalooza vibes.
Definitely a fair assessment. Maybe slightly higher caliber, but very similar idea.
Obviously, when you throw someone like Jack and Tudor in there and Farlow, but a lot of these guys competed in that Division One and one in some form. And then you have one athlete who actually won it this past year, Ty Jenkins, who won the RX division. And then you have someone like Roldan who won the LATAM Cup, correct?
Yeah.
So there's I mean, kind of getting those vibes in that. So maybe a kind of a step up from that RX division, but we've always said the RX division at Wadapalooza is kind of precursor to like future success as an elite athlete. Or longevity as an elite athlete. Maybe not a games athlete, but as an elite athlete. And I think this division is kind of maybe, very similar to that, if not, like I said, a step up.
Well, and the kind of follow up to that was what I was going to say is, winning is a skill. And Ty Jenkins has won it at multiple competitions. You mentioned the RX division and also as a teenager in the game season. So I have him here as 6th, which I feel is like a kind of a safe pick. But he's actually the guy on this list that I'm most excited to see compete in this field, especially because every time that we've posted anything about WFP, he's right in the comments immediately, which makes me feel like while there are a lot of athletes who are maybe a little bit apprehensive or unsure, like he's decided to throw his name into the ring for this, and he seems to be bought into it as if it's a very important competition in his year, regardless of what else he might be doing. So Ty's got a great head on his shoulders at a young age. He has won before, maybe not against this quality of a field, but close to it and under a similar maybe type of pressure. And the thing for Ty is it's like there's nothing to lose. I don't feel like anybody has an expectation, or maybe he does or his team, but no one's like, oh yeah, Ty Jenkins, like that guy should definitely win. So this is I just think is a very great opportunity for him to, get the experience he wants against some of these guys and also potentially lean on the experience he already has of standing on top of podiums.
Before we move on, 3 of these athletes, this will be their 3rd high-level competition in 5 weeks. Jorge, Jack, and Jack Farlow, Jack Rosema, all competed at Mayhem. We'll do the online semifinal.
Could be for Victor Lundell as well. He was in Wadland.
Yeah, and I talked to him a little bit. He was still kind of on the fence. He wasn't sure. So
it depends on if he wants to do the online semifinal this week, and then also if he wants to. Oh God, Jack's in the comments. And then also if he does end up showing up for this, of the guys on this list, he has the farthest travel for sure. So that's what I'm saying is like, and I think, Jack Farley's got a great case to be made is, he's not going to be in that situation of he's not doing the semifinal this week. Most of these guys are probably doing it. So, and I don't know how that's going to affect the athletes, honestly. Those workouts that the games team rolled out, they're tough and they have to, They have to be because of what they're qualifying for. So taking those on, potentially doing some of them more than once, and then, rewinding the tape and getting ready for something like this, it's absolutely going to influence the competition. And I don't even think that the athletes necessarily know how. So it's hard for us to project that.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's this top 10, it's very stacked, even with, a very experienced, I think it's going to be close. I don't think any one of these athletes might run away with it. They're all strong in simple things. Like I said, you kind of pick guys who are experienced and also are very strong, based on the programming. And,
Well, and even with the lighter weights, I was telling this story at the gym this morning. There's a guy that I used to train with who is much, much stronger than me, but his overall fitness is probably less. But when we did Fran together, his cycle rate on the thrusters was like he was doing 3 reps every time I was doing 2 reps because it's just so light for him. And so even with the lighter weights, if you're starting to cycle those snatches, move that sandbag, all the different weightlifting implements that are in play, it still pays to be strong, even if it's applied on reps versus a higher weight. And we can just look at the results that have already come in from Heavy Isabel. Like, it pays to be strong even when you have to do 30 reps, which would technically be more like a battery test at that weight.
Yeah.
I also think, like, for sure, I know a lot of the athletes were like, we can hang, we can use the heavier weights. And, like, I don't think anyone doubts that. I almost feel like it's like dangling a carrot. Like, if you want to play and you want to lift heavy, do better and make it into the pro. Like, I almost feel like it's like incentivizes some of these higher level athletes to do these qualifiers and try and do really well so that they can be in that pro division or the top 10 of the challenge,
So that kind of wraps up the challenger division. Anything, Brian, you want to say before we move on to the pro division regarding this? Just in general, or anything about these athletes? I know we didn't really talk too much about, like we didn't go in depth too much on these athletes. And I think the reason why is because we are so familiar with these athletes, and I think we'll just be repetitive every time we talk about the same stuff.
The main thing that I want to say is, and I feel like this can't really be reiterated enough, is especially if you compete in this challenger division and place in the top 5, you are 100% in the mix for a 2026 pro card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to be within 5 spots of making it into that top 10 that are regardless of the signed athletes, that can earn a trip to Copenhagen. And if you do well in the July qualifier and get into the pro field, you're almost guaranteed a spot there, because there'll be athletes that don't participate or that do but didn't in this one. So get some of these athletes, like, they've tried their hand at a variety of different things and it hasn't worked out this year because, like we said last year about this year about the CrossFit Games season, it's the first time that everybody who could is not trying to make it to the games. Well, everybody who could earn a pro card next year is not trying to. Some people, like you said, have declined invitations and opportunities along the way, which means that some of these people who see this as an opportunity, even if they're in this division, are going to potentially earn themselves an opportunity that they may not have if the full depth and breadth of athletes had signed up for this. And that's what this goes back to, this age-old saying that we often say as an athlete: you can't control who signs up, who shows up, who competes. You just got to go and do your thing. And some of these guys are going to put themselves in a situation that could potentially change their entire career and life if they end up earning a pro card for 2026. Because once you start going on the tour, you get exposure in different markets, you get exposure at different platforms, you get exposure with different brands. And all it takes is one person to see you and say, oh, that person's interesting to me, let me give them a call. And now things are potentially going in a totally different direction than you thought they were 18 months previously.
Yep.
Yeah. It's so crazy, and we'll talk. I mean, I guess I can wait till tomorrow to bring it up. But you're bringing up the challenger division. But this is the first and only year that they signed athletes without the point system. They had to do that. There's been some discussions on what athletes and some controversy over who was signed. And today they're signed. But you look at the women's division. Next year, you're gonna have Gabby Magawa chasing for one of those cards. That's exciting. That's exciting to me. If she's 100% healthy. So you're gonna have some athletes who were not 100%, that weren't guaranteed a spot down there, going to be chasing a card. And I think, when you put like pros like that and have them in a chase, that makes that a compelling story as you go on, because you're going to be following that storyline. And it's going to start at Indianapolis for some of these athletes like Jorge and Jack, who, coming out of the challenge division, or Tudor, or any of these guys that finish in the top, any of these guys that gain points, if they do that second online qualifier, there's no guarantee. We already seen it on the women's side where someone like Emma McQuaid, who was a signed pro athlete, is already in the hole because she couldn't compete this year because she's not, or this competition. So it's almost virtually impossible for, maybe not virtually impossible, but it's impossible for Emma to, get a pro card for next year. So, but anyways, we'll move on to the pro division. As Brian said, 30 athletes, 20 of them are previously signed athletes that were, the other 10 were grabbed from the top 10 on the men's side, the top 10 men from the online qualifier that accepted their invitation. I believe all the men accepted their invitation in the top 10. And so we'll start with the bottom 10, 21 through 30, and leading off with Noah Olson and Chandler Smith.
Okay. Yeah. So now we're into the top 30 athletes, and this was hard. There are people who have podiumed at high level competitions in this group that are in the bottom third of the field here. And I don't know. Noah isn't. It's like, on the one hand, what can this guy not do? We've seen him do all this different stuff throughout his career, and on the other hand, I don't know what his focus is compared to what it's been previously. He has tons of different opportunities. Obviously, he's got big sponsors supporting him, but he's also been doing some different stuff. His fitness, his base of fitness is so high. He could obviously do much better than this. But I think Maysa was sort of alluding to it, of like what mentality people are bringing to this can definitely make a difference. So I didn't feel good about putting any of these guys in the bottom 10, but when I started like filtering through everything, you just have to. So
yeah, it's like Rogue.
And I felt in some ways like this was harder than Rogue, because in Rogue, most of the years, the people who come through the qualifier, as good as they are, they end up finishing, like 3 to 4 of them finish in the bottom 5 as, out of 20. And then there's sometimes one guy or one girl that finishes inside the top 10. So you can at least just say like, well, most of the qualifiers don't do well there, I'm going to rank them at the bottom. In this competition, it's somewhat similar. The guys 27 through 30, those are guys who came through the qualifier, obviously. Then you have, wow, this is a very, very bold statement. I don't know if you saw that Tola has already lifted 420 pounds for a joke, the jerk in his Instagram. That event is going to be absolutely insane, but I don't know.
And there's Guy too. I wouldn't put him out.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I think 7 of these 10 guys, or 6 of these 10 guys at least, are people who came through the qualifier. Victor Hoffer is like, again, it's kind of easy to put him down here because we haven't seen him compete at all. Not 100% sure how healthy he is.
I'm surprised you had him that high, actually.
Yeah, could have put him lower, I guess. And then, like, man, I want to put on Yoel a lot higher. I want to put Guy higher too, but I just don't know. There were other people. So I would say that in this ranking, if you're upset with me about the rankings because of Guy or James Sprague, you can totally have every right to be. Those are probably the 2 guys that, relative to other competitions that they've done, I've slighted with this ranking a little bit. But there's just other people that I feel like I have a good feeling about. And so I wanted to like make a little bit of a risky pick, I guess, early, put my name with those guys and say, hey, I have a good feeling about them coming in. And so everyone else then slides down a spot or 2.
There's an athlete on here, Chris Ibarra, who I think he might start off with, he has a good chance of maybe finishing top 5, top 10 in that first event just alone. It's very similar, it kind of reminds me of that first event from West Coast Classic, but just with just ring muscle-ups. But yeah, he may not be the strongest athlete here, but I think you just have, I don't know. it's almost like you have a bunch of athletes here are almost like specialists in certain ways. And then Noah and Chandler, who are kind of like X factors, were kind of like hybrid athletes now. But I think they both have that skill set that just because they're doing high rocks just doesn't go away. Chandler's still going to be freaking strong. I mean, that's just the strength he has is just that, And I think if anything, the high rocks training is going to make him better in certain aspects of it. Maybe I don't know. I mean, that's just my thought. But Maysa. When you kind of look at this list, there's a couple athletes we didn't talk about. But is there anyone that you wanted to talk about and bring light to, or or you think that Brian is either underrating here?
I mean, I think like 15 to 25 in general is so hard, and that could jumble a lot. I do think Chandler Smith should be higher. But again, like you said, it's going to depend how they show up. They are training for high rocks. I think Nick Matthew was kind of impressive in some of his events at Mayhem Classic, which his snatch was really great. He moved really well. I thought he did better overall than I expected. So I may have him higher. But again, like I would say Travis, BKG, Noah, Chandler, like all of those are kind of somewhat similar in their stage of their career. And also like they've been competing for so long, we don't know how they're coming into this, and all those are kind of up for grabs. I don't think that it's crazy you put Victor there because he's going to have some home runs. Like he is such a specialist. He's pretty strong for being a smaller athlete too. Guy might be low because, like you said, all the tests have a strength implement. But we'll see. I'm not mad about it.
You gotta be careful what you say about Noah, Travis, and Chandler, though. Be careful.
That was Brian's fault saying I somehow said they're washed up because I never use those words. I literally said that they would be top 5. I just wasn't sure if they could win, and that was somehow taken as some crazy slight against them.
Hey.
They're all extremely good athletes. It just depends on what their goal is with this. And I do think it is very fair to say they're all on the back half of their career. I mean, Noah was retired prior to this, so that's not even but self-proclaimed.
Yeah, I get you. I'm just giving you some spack, And the thing is, they're competitive athletes. Whatever. Sometimes athletes have to take things out of context of field. Michael Jordan's notorious, Kobe Bryant. Some of the top athletes. That's what they do.
That's great. I hope I added fuel to their fire that made them win because it was an awesome finale. They won in the craziest final lunge event. Like that was awesome competition.
Mm-hmm. And you made up for it with the story about it, so you're all good. So.
Oh, I had nothing to make up for. It was an opinion that was totally valid.
Fair enough. Brian, I guess we'll move on to the middle group, the Middleton, as I'll call him. So in order, James Sprague at 11th, reigning fittest man on earth. Jay Crouch at 12th, Justin Medeiros at 13th, Yona Koski at 14th, Luka Jukic at 15th, BKG 16th, Travis Mayer, 18th, Tola, 19, Nate Ackerman, and then 20, Colin Bossart.
Pretty impressive list for not being the top 10.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. 21 and 22 is too high for Noah and Chandler. But we can start with Travis, I think. Lynn with a little comment here. Maybe this won't have an impact. We're TBD. We've been talking about it. Travis is so excited and has been for the WFP. So I expect his best performance. Yeah, I think that I think Travis amongst those 3 guys is maybe the most focused on this, which is why I have him a few spots higher than them. And Travis is he's kind of, I would say he's similar to Pat Vellner in that there hasn't been, it's a different level, but there hasn't been a tremendous drop off from Travis yet as he's gotten older. Like he's still continuing to place pretty similarly in the events that he shows up and competes at to what he was doing a few years ago. So he's shown a resiliency to age so far relative to his ability against the best in the world. We know that for everybody, it drops off at some point, but I'm still impressed with what he's capable of doing. And I think that he can be flirting with the top half of this field.
Brian, after what we just saw at Wadland with Colin Bossard, yes, a very good performance, I believe, in Heavy Isabel. But besides that, he kind of got buried in some of these these events that had like a hot, heavy dumbbell or heavy weight. And like I said, we'll look at the programming here later. But are you concerned with the programming that you might have rated Colin a little too high, especially when you have someone like Guy and some of these other guys behind him?
Yeah, potentially. I would say this was one of the guys that I was kind of taking a little bit of a gamble on. I'm not sure with these events and on paper that he would warrant the 20th place here, but he's. I was impressed with some of the stuff that he did in Wadland, and I think that he will have at least 2, maybe 3 pretty good workouts here that will allow him to stay sort of in this range. I think he's going to do quite well on the first one and the second one with the I think he can move that sandbag good enough and the handstand walking and GHD. And then I'm curious to see how he handles the low yoke with the rope climbs. But I think, like 4A, 4B, he could be bottom 5 or worse, on both of those parts, and obviously take a huge hit there. They're only 50 points each, but and then the final with the heavy dumbbells and the lunge. Now it's an overhead lunge here. The farmer's carry lunge with a heavier weight crushed him at the semifinal. So I think he'll take his highs and lows like he always does, but I think he does have a couple top 10s in him that they'll keep him around this 20 mark.
I won't ask this question towards you, Brian, because you're probably answering these questions because he's texting you. But I'll ask Maysa instead. James Sprague at 11th, Maysa. What do you think of that?
I like it, honestly.
Okay.
I think.
Why?
Oh, I feel like I have to choose my words carefully. Things you came for me about my comments on Chandler Smith and Noah. I think yes, he won the games. I think he's a good athlete for sure. I still think he has something to prove. I don't think he's made it. I think obviously for a lot of reasons, a lot of athletes, for a very obvious reason, a lot of athletes weren't competitive at the games given circumstances. I think since then, he went to Rogue and had, he was sick, didn't have a great time. Mayhem Classic wasn't his best showing. I think he's still, while he is the fittest man on earth, still needs to show up to some other competitions and do really well. Obviously, Wadapalooza he did. But we'll see. I think this is a very competitive field. And I think if he performs similarly to Mayhem Classic, that's an accurate ranking, is my opinion.
Brian,
go ahead. I'm very excited to see Nate Ackerman compete. I think he might even do better. He's just following him on Instagram, seeing he's so young, so strong, so hungry. I think he has a cool story. His mom is also a games athlete, right? I think in Masters, which is look at James Sprague, right? Same kind of thing. Did it with his dad. But I think it's not an inaccurate ranking because we don't know a ton about him yet because he is so young. But I think he's one to watch for sure.
Yeah, this is kind of where he finished last year in the semifinal in NA East. This is a better field than the NA East was, top to bottom. So if he ends up finishing in a similar spot than he did there, I would say that's an improvement in fitness over the last 12 months. He would have won the qualifier if not for a penalty that he got, which wasn't even fitness related. I think it was a minor infraction of a rule on the first workout. I got a chance to train with him, which was unexpected, but it was pretty cool. And I saw him do a couple things that weekend that made me think he's ready to compete in this division against these guys. I thought so after the Syndicate Crown last year anyway. 12 months later, he took some time off of high intensity training and focused on a little bit of weightlifting. He's got some freakishly strong lifts, and then some others that are kind of coming along. Like he's just beyond like an inhumanly strong front squatter, for example.
Yeah.
Which will bode really well on that workout. But he, so I think he's gonna catch some people's attention. Some of you may have seen him last year at semifinals. He was wearing a cool jersey or two that, sometimes you wear something flashy and people notice that, but he had some performances to back it up. Like Ty Jenkins, he's won the Teenage CrossFit Games, and that winner's mentality is not something that's to be forgotten. He actually showed up to Fittest of the Coast as a replacement on the elite men teams of 2. And I saw him there, and he was competing with someone who's not as good as him, not even close to as good as him. But as soon as I saw him on the thing, I was like, oh, damn, they might win. And they said, and Nate's like, well, I didn't come here for anything other than to win. So like that mindset is one of these things that we've referenced with these young athletes over the years. We talked about it a little bit, I think yesterday with Bergos and Leah and these, and like he has a lot of those non-tangible things that usually lend themselves towards high caliber athletes throughout their career. So yeah, I think Nate's exceptionally intriguing amongst this group, and I'm glad that you highlighted him.
Athlete I want to highlight, I kind of brought it up with Mr. Robert Yates, is kind of a similar position, but he's competing in the pro division and is coming off qualifying for the games once again on a team. Is Tola, just had a very good performance on the online qualifier, and this is a guy who we've only seen in very rare instances of him competing as individual. Usually at Dubai, I think he's competed as an individual at Dubai 3 or 4 times, Brian.
Yeah, at least 3.
At least 3 that I know of. There might be a 4th in there, but he usually does very well in those things. I mean, he actually had a games qualifying spot in 2019, but due to a backfill, but then that was kind of taken away later on because they got rid of the backfill. And this is a guy who I believe finished top 5 in the Open one year, and now he's again. We normally wouldn't see him do this late in the season, do an individual competition. He's just coming off their team winning this team semifinal. I'm excited to see what he does against this. This is an amazing field for him to go against. I mean, yeah, he's been against some amazing fields in Dubai. I think 1 year, I think it was Fraser Fikowski, Vellner were there the year, I think in 2019. But this overall collection, top to bottom, I think this will be really cool. I like him at 18th. I think he definitely can maybe go up. We just don't know how much of a whole year of Krieger athletics training has helped his engine and some of his other weaknesses.
Also, is everyone not so excited that Tola and Guy are going to be doing a max lift in the same competition? Because neither of them have anyone close to them lifting wise. I think it's going to be so cool.
Well, actually, let's since you brought that up, I want to mention this comment from Krithika and explain how this might end up going, because if you're looking at the programming, you would probably look at the first event which has all that running and say that for Guy and Tola, they may not get off to a fast start. If neither of them is able to climb inside the top 20 after the second event, or if they both are and they're in the same heat, which is heat 2 or heat 3, that lifting workout, as I understand it, it's a free for all. So like there's going to be a lot of gamesmanship within the heat of watching and making these decisions about when to lift, how much to lift, when to put extra weight on the bar. So I'm kind of hoping that they end up in the same range on the second day. How the seating will go, there's On the Pulse episodes that are coming out the next 2 days that I think will show the rankings, but the WFP ranked the 20 signed athletes based on competition performances over the last couple of years. And so the top 10 ranked coming in would be in heat number 3, the final heat on day 1. The bottom 10 of the 20 signed athletes would be in the middle heat, and the 10 qualifiers would be in the first heat on day number 1. But in the case of the women, the top qualifier, Andrea Solberg, would bump into that middle heat because Emma McQuaid's not competing. After day 1, those 30 athletes will be seated as if they're just in one division. And so that's what I'm talking about here, is that if they finish within the same 10 range, and again, like Nick Matthew could absolutely be in that heat with them as well. And you may end up having the top 3 lifts or 3 of the top 5 lifts coming out of heat 2 on the Saturday night. So that could be super exciting.
Any other athletes we kind of want to spotlight here? Obviously, there's a lot of them here that we didn't really put give
Yeah, I
particular.
want to just talk about Luka for a second because, you know, we've seen the high and the low with the Dubai and then with the Wadapalooza. And basically, right on the back of Wadapalooza, he put out this message. He said, "No excuses, eyes on Indy." Well, so now he's had the same sort of time, run up, focus, and training leading into a competition that he had to Dubai, which you know, regardless of the quality of the field there, I would say that competition and last year's semifinal were the two best versions of Luka that I've seen in competition. So he's increasing his capacity. And he's also shown that when he has a very singular focus on something, that he can do quite well. He has said this thing when I put out the power rankings, I put him 12th for the season, that it's 8 spots higher than I should be. So he acknowledges that relative to this caliber of athlete, he has not achieved what the top 20 signed pros have, but 11 spots lower than he will be. So he has that mindset of, I can actually beat these guys. I can win this. Lynn says he's stronger. The other thing about Luka is his jerk is probably his best Olympic lift in isolation, and it never gets tested. It's always the clean or the clean and jerk or the squat. Now we're going to get this, or the snatch, I should say. So now we're going to get to see how he can handle getting a lift that's kind of in his wheelhouse. Now, this is a very strong group of men. So even though it's his best lift, he's still going to be 5 to 8 guys that he probably can't touch on this. But if he finishes 10th on the lift, it might be his best compared to what he would have done if it was a clean and jerk or a squat snatch. So the front squat workout will be interesting in his case because those kind of buried him at the semifinal last year compared to most of his like peers. So I'm curious to see if the increased strength will produce a different effect when it comes to the front squats.
An athlete we didn't really talk about at all, and it's typical. Jay Crouch, you have him at 12th. I really want to see him. Like, I mean, he's always sneaks in there. He's just kind of unassuming guy. He's not, you know, when it comes to Aussie, he's not as flashy as some of the other Aussies. You know, you always see Ricky celebrating. You know, you have the Cons, you have, you know, just, you know, the James Newberries of the world out there who are known as these showmen. And Jay's just kind of a old business out there. And yeah, I mean, what does
Well,
Jay need to do?
Yeah, no, let me say this 11 through 15 on this list. I sat there and I said, how can I move one of these guys into the top 10? And there's just not space. All 5 of them have the potential to finish in the top 10 for sure. Jay did it at Rogue. Koski did it at Rogue. Medeiros did it at Rogue, and Sprague was 11. So, like, you know, that's not a very different field necessarily than this. Maybe you add a couple guys and 10 extra spots. But I think that some of the guys that are added to that field are going to be competing kind of the best we've ever seen, and we'll talk about them in a second. And a couple of the others will do better than they did at Rogue as well. So Jay Crouch is amazing. And, you know, like we've seen him go toe to toe with Ricky in a similar style of competition. And he finally broke through, I would say, in Rogue last year. If I was Jay and knowing Jay, he's probably going to be pretty pissed to see this. He's going to be like, Brian, what the hell? Like, I just finally did it. I finished in the top 6 and now you have me down your like doing half as well as that. So I don't know. Jay Crouch definitely could exceed this projection.
All right.
This is a hot take from Lynn. I'd switch Ricky's place for Jay. Wow. But I love it.
Oh,
Okay.
But you can't do that, Lynn, because you already said that you would put Yellow Jose 5th.
Sure. All right. Top 10. Wow. Man, I mean, these are some heavy hitters. I mean, to see Patrick Vellner in 8th, that tells you how deep this field is. We haven't seen a collection of athletes like this probably since, you know, competing healthy against each other, probably since 2021, perhaps. And these are all different. They're all different points of their career. I mean, last year, obviously, Ricky was injured. Roman wasn't 100%. Jeffrey Adler wasn't at the games. Yella. I mean, just a bunch of certain. Colton wasn't at the games last year. Year prior, we had Roman who was hurt. You know, Austin wasn't a part of that field. Ricky was, I believe, hurt that year too. Jason was struggling. I mean, it's cool because hopefully all 10 of these athletes are coming in healthy and ready to have some fun because this is impressive.
let's let Maysa decide where to start with this one.
All right, Maysa, you pick. Who you want to talk about?
Oh, there's so many things. I mean, we can just start at the bottom. I think Colton will definitely be in the top 10. Same as I said before Mayhem Classic. I think he has something to prove, and he's been doing it time and time and time again. I think he has the ability to be anywhere in the top 10. So I mean, 10th might be low based on his recent performances. But yeah, I mean, I think he could take it all if he wanted to. It seems he's that good right now.
Take it
Uh,
all.
I think that, I mean, I think Sam Quant should not be in the top 10.
Okay, well, let's start with
Tell me why you put him there.
well, let's go, one at a time. You're talking about Colton, so I was prepared to talk about Colton.
Threw you off. Okay. Colton, tell me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the highest that I've projected Colton against a field of this caliber. And obviously, it's still not good enough for the people that are massive Colton fans. I don't know if this is good enough for where his fitness is at right now. We've been talking about this for him over the last 5-6 weeks. Is what he's doing right now is it's a handful of people who've ever kind of strung together these types of performances.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, there's been these blips, and I think
Yep.
the programming in Mayhem was almost perfect for him. But now, I'm not sure that it is here. He's not going to get bailed out with the running performance that he had in Mayhem on that first event by having 100. What was it? How many reps of squatting and burpees?
Yeah.
It was hundreds of reps that he could make up against the field there. But he was giving away like 100 to 200 meters on each run to Austin Hatfield. And there's a ton of good runners in this field. And none of those guys are going to struggle with 6-ring muscle ups and 6 snatches to the point where he can make it up. So I think he's going to get off to his worst finish in an individual event that we've seen this calendar year from him. And then he's going to have to try to make it up from there. You got to work out with, the rope climb workout, like it's 20 rope climbs. As good as he's gotten at those, look at the average height of the people in this top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the yoke to go with it, which I don't know that he can make up so much ground on a yoke with those small strides that he has against guys that are just as strong, that are, up to a foot taller than him in some cases. So
100%.
there's a Echo Bike sled workout, which as good as he's gotten on the Echo Bike, I don't see him doing well on that either. And it's only 50 points. So I think that what you're going to see is kind of almost the opposite of what we saw at Mayhem, where now we have a slate of workouts that are programming that on paper, I don't think are great for him. And he's going to get penalized for it. Now, I still think there's some events like the front squat and gymnastics complex that he's going to be incredible at and maybe beat the whole field. But if you, against a field like this, if you have basically 2.5 events that he's not great at, I don't think it's enough to get into the top 5.
Fair.
You know who is going to be great? Sam Quant.
Tell me why.
Tell us why.
Hey, I mean, and I saw someone else was asking about Sam Quant too,
Yeah.
Patrick, if you want to pull that up there. So I would say of the top 10 here, Sam Quant and Yellow Hoste are probably the two that I'm like staking my flag next to, where they're not the obvious picks here. I think that most people, if you put James Sprague 7th and Jay Crouch 9th, that I would have got a lot less criticism on this list. And that's totally fair. But sometimes it's fun to just have a good feeling about someone and make those picks. And that's what I'm doing in this case.
Yep.
Sam Quant is, he's especially good, I think, at kind of grunt work style movements. And I think that he's going to find a way to capitalize on some of that in these events. So I think that the sandbag workout, he can do quite well on the yoke workout. He can do quite well on the sled echo bike. He can do well on the final workout with the dumbbells. He's really good with that kind of a weight and movement pattern. So I actually think this might end up being his best finish of the 3 tour stops relative to the top 30 men. And when I was kind of thinking about his performances and these workouts, I was like, you know what? He is a guy who has shown over and over and over again that he has the capacity to finish in the top 10 against the best in the world. And if he's going to do it at any one of these tour stops, I kind of feel like it's going to be this one.
Okay. You fine with that answer?
I mean, good justification. I don't agree with the ranking, but at least there's a
Come on,
logical
Sam.
reason behind it. I also, the other thing I would say about this, the only other kind of big thing is I think I would flip Jason and Roman because I think Jason's better with a barbell. He is for sure. And Roman's better aerobically. But Roman's worse with a barbell than Jason is aerobically. Does that make sense?
Well, I'll just tell you what I'm thinking about Roman here. I mean, qualifying in Wadland Fest last week was critical for Roman. It allows him to travel back and take this whole time off. Well, a lot of these guys are worrying about this online semifinal. I think that he has shown through the performances at Mayhem Classic and also Wildland Fest that he's back to being his normal self, which is a contender for podiums, regardless of who shows up to any competition. You kind of, even though I don't think the workouts at Mayhem Classic were perfect for him, he still managed to get on the podium. He still managed to beat Jason and James there. Then he went to a competition where he was the favorite to win, and he won. I think that coming into this competition, he's going to have the happiness that we saw him talk about, the confidence of knowing his body's back to being able to perform a series of. So are you trying to say that you don't think these workouts are good for him, for Roman?
I think they're better for Jason.
Fair enough.
Why is that?
I think there's, yeah, and I think that the margins for it are super small here. But Roman, and I know that like not all these guys are necessarily, well, I did factor into that Roman, Austin, Colton, and Vellner amongst and Yella are not doing the semifinal this week. And in all cases, I don't see how you could suggest that that's not advantageous.
No, I think it is.
So for each of them, when it came down to like those small decisions, I was like, well, I'm going to give the nod here to Roman ahead of Ricky and Jason, which were kind of the guys I was looking at that as a group of guys, 4, 5, 6, because I know that he's this competition. I've seen him compete. He looks like he's really good. And even though he didn't compete for 8 months and now he's doing 3 competitions in 5 weeks, Roman has a ton of experience competing and he loves competing and he has done volume like this before. It's the last serious thing that he has to do before the games. And I think that he'll be able to maintain the fitness that he has. It's only 2 workouts per day. There's a big period of time between each of them. So I think Roman is in good shape right now. He doesn't have to do the semifinal and it's going to pay off for him in this one. So, I think he does understand the value of getting some points relative to these guys here. And I think that he might, be able to take advantage of the no semifinal this weekend. Patrick, you there?
Yep, I'm here. Just listening to you two. Well, you guys, I wasn't sure if you had a rebuttal.
I hear you about the semifinal. However, I think that like Roman just traveled for a competition. So that also is gonna have some recovery effect versus they're doing a semifinal closer to, but in their home gym. So I think that's also worth noting that the like stress levels of doing an online competition or on the body and recovery are going to be less than having to travel and sleep somewhere else and do all of those things. And I do think like I feel like you kind of brushed off like, oh, he hasn't competed in 8 months and he's competing 3 times in 3 weeks, whatever. Like as a physical therapist, that's a lot. That's coming back quick. And I think that might show. I think that's a lot of competing for such a short period of time. It's like, I mean, we always say in PT, like you get injured by doing too much too soon after doing too little for too long. Not that I think he's doing too much too soon. He has a huge base of fitness, but there's something to be said for the fact that he hasn't competed in 8 months.
All right. I think it's fair. It's a very fair conversation and that
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun.
Whoever said that they're shocked about Austin in third, I think has not watched Austin recently, to be honest. Because
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not shocking. I mean, he's great recently.
yeah, I would say the big variables for Austin in this competition are probably a couple of things that we maybe haven't seen him do before, like a yoke. We'll see how he handles that, but I don't think he's going to struggle with it. I think I don't really know what his max jerk is. I know he's cleaned 400 pounds, but he seems like he's very strong and has a good overhead position. On paper, the sled and echo bike should be his worst workout of the weekend, but it's a 50-point event. So if you're going to have the worst performance of the weekend and it's only half the points of the other ones, perfect. You take that every time. Like that could have been a 100-point event, and that would have been a lot more penalizing for him. And I think there's some workouts that he's going to be getting top 3 finishes on. I think he's going to start the weekend with the top 3 finish. He might have another one on the front squats and the gymnastics complex. He might have another one on the final. I don't think the row is going to be too much of a separator. Burpees, thrusters, and lunge seems like it's another great combination for him. I think he's a rare specimen that is adapted to this sport exceptionally fast, elevated to the top in a time frame that very few have done before, and I still don't think we've seen the ceiling for him.
And I don't like about the yoke. I don't think you are a mayhem athlete and are having trouble with odd objects. Like they just have access to everything.
Yeah, and his core is so strong. I mean, he's I don't really see many holes in his game.
Yeah.
And I think he's also, the competition experience that he's gained over the last year is not to be forgotten. The other thing that I really like about him is I don't think he gets down on himself during competition. Like he didn't really have a stellar performance at the games last year, with the exception of Chad, until the finals, and then he reels off back-to-back wins. So like he seems to have this ability to just continuously go out there and perform, regardless if things have gone well or bad. And that kind of goldfish mentality, the resiliency mentally to kind of put whatever happened behind you and just go compete, is another thing that he seems to have figured out very early in his competitive career. So I think the sky is super high or the limit is very high for Austin, but I'm still not sure if he can beat Dallin and Jeff. To me, those are the guys to beat.
Yep. I agree. I think I would have Dallin winning, but I mean, it's a toss up at that point. Like it's going to depend on. Also, we haven't seen Jeff compete in a minute, so it's going to depend on what he looks like.
He looks amazing from what I've seen in Instagram. I mean, this guy.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, you know what I'm saying.
They all look good on Instagram, so.
I know, but it's I don't know how to describe what I'm talking about. But anyway, if you haven't watched the re-released Unbreakable episode, you can really get an insight into how specific Jeff Adler is in his entire routine and lifestyle. Yep. Like he knows down to the gram what he's putting in his body. He knows down to the minute how much he's sleeping. He doesn't overdo it in the gym. He takes care of all the body work. He takes care of all the recovery. He takes care of all the accessories. And he's been stacking years of doing that.
Yep.
While all these other guys, like the conversation we just had about Roman, it is not and has never been relevant for Jeff. He does not overcompete. He targets very specific competitions over the last 4 seasons, and he has gotten to the point where he's the favorite every time he shows up. He is doing the semifinal, the game season, which I wasn't sure about prior to the Open, but so he'll have that competition this weekend. But if there are, I know they're all good at this to some degree, but if there are 2 guys that I am not worried about doing a semifinal online and backing it up with a strong live performance, it's Jeff and Dallin, because the discipline that they have in their life is second to none. They do not take any moment of their days for granted.
Yep. No, I agree with that 100%.
Hi, Matt.
Yeah, but not all professional athletes. I would say Dallin and Jeff are
Dennis Rodman
2 of the most disciplined.
No, yeah.
And there's seemingly, obviously.
No, discipline comes in a variety of different forms, and excellence in sport comes in a variety of different forms. I mean, we've heard the stories of, I mentioned Dennis Rodman, of even Michael Jordan playing golf, drinking 10 beers, and then, dominating 50 points in a
Yep.
a game in the evening. Like these guys aren't like that. Like these guys are super, super disciplined in everything that they do. And those things matter when competitions get difficult and when margins for error are small. So I think that in addition to all the skills that they have, those things matter in moments like this. Someone had put a comment about Ricky up there saying that they thought that this was too high and he hasn't been performing recently. I mean, look, know, he wasn't 100% at the games. He finished 4th at Rogue. He finished 4th at Wadapalooza. I think he's reasserted himself into the conversation that it doesn't really matter what the competition is. He's a top 5 threat, but he's the guy that seems to do 90% of the things right and 10% of the things wrong at every competition that keeps him off the podium.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see because he's obviously him and Jay are in Nashville now. They made the trip over, I think, a couple of weeks ago. They're going to do I mean, it's a great move by them. Obviously, they have basically back-to-back competitions. They have the online semifinal, and then they have WFP. So, I mean, to be a fly on the wall in that online semifinal at Proven with those guys and Sydney Wells and Kyra Milligan, and I mean, Colton's going to be there. Yeah, I mean, I guess Colton said something. I forgot which podcast he was on, but basically just kind of like help these guys pace.
Yep.
I mean, that's so cool. Like, these are guys. I mean, think about it. These are guys who are top 10 athletes. Colton isn't there yet, but this has been the year of Colton. But he's still doing it. It's just
Well, he might be there. I mean, someone mentioned in the comments, very early on, which I was expecting, that I didn't have Colton high enough, and I was like, well, I still don't know how good he's actually gotten in the last 12 months. It's clearly been an improvement, but he hasn't competed against all of these guys. I do think that the program at Mayhem was favorable to him. We already talked about this programming potentially not being, and absolutely, they said like your Mind of Matter said, you're fueling Colton. He's got plenty of fuel. Like he doesn't struggle for motivation to go and prove people wrong. So
sure.
I think also. Go ahead.
No, I just think it's just cool that, these are guys, he could easily be like, nah, I'm going to stay here, stay here in Iowa. I got work to do, get my mind right for WFP, just kind of, rest up. But instead he's going to Nashville to help his teammates who are actually guys who are his competitors. It's an individual sport, but he's doing it for the team. And because I think, as much as we think like he's kind of this guy who's kind of just on his own, he does have an amazing team that backs him, and they love him at Proven, and he's, to kind of see him being involved with that, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think also like if he does show up to WFP and perform really well, then he's gonna get ranked higher next time. It's like every time like a year ago, you probably wouldn't have ranked him top 10 amongst these guys. He's just got to keep doing what he's doing.
No, I mean,
and then it's going to be expected,
A year ago, we ranked him top 10 at the semifinal in the West Coast, just on the end of the top 10, which is where he finished there. And now we're talking about a guy who has the potential to finish in the top 10 against the best group of athletes in the world. And people are still not satisfied with that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm excited to see. Obviously, what he did in Mayhem was great. He beat some incredible athletes, guys that you would say are absolutely in the top 10. Roman, Jason, James, for the most part. And let's see how he does here. As he continues to stack these competitions, of course, like anyone else, he'll continue to move up the rankings.
And then just a side note about Ricky, I think what's really interesting about him throughout his whole career is I would say Ricky is one of very few competitive CrossFitters who is like through and through an athlete. Like he's an athlete outside of like a lot of elite CrossFitters are very good at fitness. Ricky's just very athletic. Like he's done a lot of sports, a lot of adrenaline sports. I think he shows up and moves like an athlete no matter what the test is. And I feel like that kind of gives him an edge anywhere he goes because he's, I would argue, the most athletic person in the field.
Yeah, he's definitely amongst them, if not the most. We haven't talked about Yellow Hoste at all. Before I say anything about it, Patrick, do you think that Yellow Hoste can finish this high in a field like this. He's never really he hasn't done it before. It's not a seventh.
Yeah. If this was Yellow Jose from like 3 years ago, I'd be like, no, not without a swim. Um, but the thing is, there is a swim. They do, I guess, they are going to program a swim at some point in the season. So
yeah, but I'm talking about this weekend.
I know
These
this one
workouts.
right here. I know. I just think right now, I don't know. I mean, we saw him this weekend. He did look good in certain things, but at the same time, he's going to have to come off a weekend where
he was 10th that year, and he didn't even get Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Deep cuts.
Sorry. Yeah. But we haven't seen. I saw him at Storm games. He looked good. I mean, he won. He did good in the events that he should have won. I mean, against that level of competition. I don't know.
I think these workouts are pretty good for him.
I think so too. I mean, especially the yoke. I mean, a lot of these they look good for him.
The workout that I'm most concerned for him, it's similar to I can't remember who I was just talking about, is the jerk. Well, it's only worth 50 points. And I think he might back that up with, I don't know if he'll win the Echo Bike Sled, but he's going to be right up there.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, like I said,
the front squats and gymnastics complex could be hard for him also. I think everything else is good for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of which, do you want to I think we pretty much hit on everyone here. Should we switch over and maybe look at the program before we end the show here?
Yeah, I do want to do that. Let's look at the workouts and give a couple names to maybe keep an eye out on each workout.
Okay, so here.
Pat. Oh, you're ready to go. I love that, Patrick. This workout, first workout of the weekend: 600-meter run, 6 ring muscle ups, 6 snatches, 5 rounds for time. I think on paper, you're looking at Adler, Hatfield, and Ricky as the 3 most likely to win. Do you guys think that any one of them has a particular advantage over the other on this?
Between those 2?
3. Adler, Hatfield, and Ricky.
Probably Adler. He's such a good runner.
Yeah, so I think so does Ricky, though. And it's like, I have to lean towards Adler on this as well, because I think the snatches. I mean, Ricky has definitely gone. I mean, that is one of his stronger lifts is snatching, and he's gotten so strong since he's been back on the scene. But that weight for Adler, it's nothing. It's 6 snatches. I mean, I think the question here is like, do you do touch and go for all 5 rounds on all 6 snatches?
I think that they're gonna do singles the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, it's only 165 pounds.
I know, but just watching people's Instagrams of testing it, every single person who's posted that has done singles. I also don't think the snatches don't matter in this workout. They're not the make it or break it. Like, you just gotta be smooth.
I'm thinking about the standard in 2019 where Noah got to the snatches a little bit before Fraser, and Fraser reeled off 5 in a row, and that was enough to kind of get the job done, take that little bit of an advantage. Mm-hmm. I think you will see some athletes who will do 3 touch and go, 3 singles. I'm not saying they're going to be the best out there. I also think that you'll see some athletes who in rounds 4 and 5 start going touch and go when they haven't previously, even if it's not for all 6 in a row.
Similar to the first workout of semis last year, where you saw people start touching, going the clean and jerks when they're racing at the end.
Look at this. Yella, Jason, Sprague, and Roman will all be close behind. And also, don't sleeper pick for this one, Colin Bossard. Colin totally schooled Roman on the sandbag squat running event. Colin is an assassin at ring muscle ups. We saw what he did on Isabel. So the bar at that weight is not bad, and he can run with the best of them. I actually think that Colin will beat 2 of these 4 guys that you have listed there, if not all 4 of them, on this particular workout.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick Austin Hatfield to win this workout and Colin Bossard to finish in the top 5 as a sleeper pick.
Yeah. And don't forget, I also said Chris Ibarra is someone to watch out for on this as well. So
great sleeper pick as well.
Yeah. Anything else about this one? I think it's a great opening workout. It hits it's a classic triplet, 5 rounds, 24-minute time cap. You get the running aspect of it, gymnastics, and just some classic bar cycling.
I kind of think this is almost a perfect workout. Now, maybe you increase the ring muscle up and squat snatches or the snatches to like 8, or maybe you move the weight up to 185. But this is, I mean, this is a very, very great workout, just like First Cut was at the games in 2019.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you think I would love to like get Will? I mean, I wish there was a
spoiler alert. We have asked him about that somewhere. So
yeah, but I would love to sit down.
Oh, Derek asked him about it actually on the Pulse.
Yeah,
he said that like he was like, yeah, it is kind of like that workout, but that wasn't intentional.
Yeah, but in any case, I would love to get like someone like him on afterwards and talk about like try to get behind his brain when it came to programming.
Oh, by the way, Will probably has an incredible time on this workout also.
Oh yeah, Will to run. I mean, this is Will's baby.
He did say it was a good workout for him.
He also said that he thinks the person who wins this workout has the chance to win the entire season, which was a super bold thing to say. First workout of 21 opportunities.
Let's mark that. So that's workout 1, or as they call it, Pro 1. Pro 2, 4-time 8-6-4-2 sandbag cleans. Between rounds, you're doing 30 GHD sit-ups, 300 meters, 100 feet of handstand walks. For the pros, it's 200, 150 pounds. The sandbags for the challengers, 150, 100. Time cap, 10 minutes.
And just so it's clear, between rounds means they'll do 90 total GHD sit-ups and 90 total meters of handstand walking or 300 feet. And yes, Lynn, this is absolutely a Justin Medeiros workout. He's great with the sandbag. He's fast on the GHDs, and he's great on his hands. If you remember, even at Rogue on the handstand walk workout, he came from the outside lane, snuck past the entire broadcast team that they had there to take an event win. I think Justin Medeiros is not just a sleeper pick, but potentially a pick to win this one outright.
I also like Colton on this one.
Colton on this one. It's not the one I would pick him to win. I think he can do solid on it. I'm curious to see how much of a factor the sandbag plays in, and I mean, again, it's Instagram, so you never know, but I've just been looking at people doing this, and this looks like an absolute assault on this event for these guys. They're like doing this sandbag like it's nothing. They're running between the transitions. They're running into the handstand walking. Yeah, I think another person to keep an eye on in this is to possibly win it is Dallin.
Yeah,
because it's one of those things. Like it reminds me of what Roman said after DT with a spin at Rogue that one year. Yeah, we were all coming off the bike at the same time, but I came off of it feeling that much better. And I think Jason is actually probably the best in the field with the sandbag movements overall.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
But I think that Dallin is a little bit better than him at GHD and handstand walking. And I think that more time for those guys will be spent on the GHD handstand walking. And even if across the, 20 reps of sandbag cleans, if Dallin's 2 reps slower than Jason on 20 reps, that he can make that up on the other 300 feet and 90 reps of GHD sit-ups.
I think Victor Hoffer is going to do good on this because he sprints on his hands.
Yeah. I
do think that matters. I think the handstand walk is a decent portion of this event.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I kind of also like Vellner, and I even a dark horse pick for me would be someone like Tola, who's really good on his hands. GHDs, this won't be no problem for him, and the sandbag clean, obviously the guy can squat. That weight's nothing for him. So, and also I also look at Vellner in terms of the handstand walk too. So, but I really do think this might be a good one for Tola as well.
Yeah. So anyway, I would think I would pick either Justin or Dallin to win this one. Tola is a nice sleeper pick.
Pro 3. So this will kick off Saturday morning. 6 rounds for time, 8 pull-ups, 6 chest to bar pull-ups, 4 bar muscle-ups, 8 rounds, or 8 rounds 1 through 4, 6 round 5, 4 round 6 front squat. So, yeah. Can you explain this one?
This is a great workout for Colton. A great workout for Colton.
Yeah, but just in case it's not as clear as some of the others, so every round for 6 rounds, they'll start on the pull-up rig, 8 pull-ups, 6 chest bar, 4
Yep.
muscle ups. That's over 100 reps of upper body pulling, and they have to start with the basic and get to the more complex each time they go there. After that, they'll move out onto the competition floor to do a series of front squats. In the first 4 rounds, it's 8 reps at the same weight. In the 5th round, there's a new bar that has a different weight on it, and they'll do 6 reps at a heavier weight. I believe the final round is even a heavier weight, and I think they have to add weight in that last round before doing 4 reps to finish out the workout in the final round. So, the question here is, does the gymnastics weigh more heavily than the front squats? And when we're talking about someone to win this workout, ultimately you want the athlete that answer doesn't actually matter because they're amazing at both. And like Maysa said, if you were going to pick Colton Mertens to win one workout this weekend, I think this is it.
Yeah, I agree. I look at someone like Colin Bossard, who would probably, if you look at just the complex on the bar, on the pull-up bar, he would do great, but he's going to get buried as he gets to the front squats. So I mean, you're going to have that factor. I mean, he'll probably be the most noticeable one, but you'll see that across the field, I think, with some of these athletes.
I mean, Vellner's great at pulling, very gymnasty and strong squatter. It could be a good workout for him. I do think Colton has this one for a lot of reasons. One of the best squatters, very good at pulling, short range of motion, like it just favors him. This could be good for Tola, honestly, based on what you said last time. He's so strong and he's good at pulling.
Another maybe sleeper pick here is Nate Ackerman, very good front squatter, and we'll see how the gymnastics goes. But and I mean, again, guys like Jeff, Austin, they're going to be up there for sure. But I think that this is Colton's a good pick to win this one, and Nate's a good sleeper pick here.
What do you think about someone like Guy?
Middle finish here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
obviously,
the front squat's great. I just think the overall fitness 6-round workout, a little bit longer. I mean, it's only 10 minutes, but it's a lot of volume adding up. 12 to 18 range.
And then we closed Saturday with Pro 4A and B, like you mentioned. Part A is a 1-rep match jerk in 8 minutes, then followed by a 2-minute rest. And Part B is 4-time 20, 25, 20, 15 cal echo bike for the men, 18, 15, 12 cal echo bike for the women, and then 15-meter, 50 feet sled push after each round. So they'll do 25 sled push, 20 sled push back, 15 sled push onto the finish.
Before you guys pick anyone here, I think that the combination of these two back-to-back on Saturday night has the potential to be one of the most exciting nightcap things that you've ever seen as a fan of the sport. The lifting speaks for itself, and we often see a Friday night or a Saturday night lights lifting, and we know that's going to build drama, huge lifts, and big moments. This Part B is savage. We tested this when we were on site there. 4 of us did 4 different weights just to get a feel for the turf that they have on site there. I feel like this is the type of event, Part B, where the people in the stands might forget to breathe for 3 minutes while they're watching what's going on, because it's going to be so fast, so competitive. There's going to be people that get off the bike at the end, go to that sled and fall over or fall trying to go to the finish line, diving across the finish line. If you're an athlete, you got to be so dialed here. Make sure you know where your chip timer is and get it across the line first, because I think that you could see 10 guys within 5 seconds across the 3 heats on this event. It's going to be so crazy, and I love it as a finisher. Also, it's going to totally mess them up. I didn't feel horrible when I finished this, but 10 minutes and an hour later, I felt pretty bad. And I was
about to say, like in acid bath, how you saw people just die after, like it's gonna give, I think, a similar feeling, like that 90 seconds after it starts to set in, and you see people just crawling.
I feel bad for like Jason, because Jason is he's one of those guys who he kind of goes full send. I mean, you saw him in Mayhem diving; his legs are dead on a lot of this stuff. I mean,
he's so great.
I know. I mean, because hopefully he's going to be a lot smarter. That he doesn't get. I mean, that's one of those things. Like, who's going to be? You're going to have potential of some of the best guys on the Echo bike, Next year, you're gonna have
the other thing that's going to happen here is somebody who could win the workout is going to go to the sled and do that little hiccup where they drive it into the turf and it lifts up and two people pass them by. So execution's at a premium here. For the jerk, I know it's going to be tight. I'm picking Tola on this. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else who can jerk 420 pounds in the field, and he's already shown that he can do that.
I don't know. I think Guy probably could. He's just never had to. Like, to be honest, like,
oh my
have
God.
you ever seen him look hard at a clean? Like it look hard? No, never.
I'm so freaking pumped about this.
I
man.
know.
I am, because, like you said, Maysa, when you brought it up, and I didn't really think about it, but when was the last time that these guys? I think back to like at West Coast Classic, there was a potential, on the what was the max lift? Oh, we didn't have that. We had not Isabel, but the what was the we?
What are you talking about? What competition?
The West Coast Classic.
Last year.
Yeah.
The snatch.
Yeah, the snatch ladder. There was a potential of having like Danny Spiegel, Olivia Kerstetter, Kelsey Keel all in one heat. Some of the strongest women in the sport. We had that potential. It didn't happen, but
and I would argue that all of those are much tighter than like Guy has been to the rest of the field.
Yeah,
because I mean, even at Wadapalooza in that complex, he was like, my biggest worry was Austin, and Austin was 20 pounds lighter than him. I think 25 pounds lighter. So no one's really challenged him or Tola at max lifts in a very long time.
And don't forget, you still have Nick Matthew, who's, I'm not saying he's going to win.
And I think, doesn't Dallin have a very good jerk, I believe?
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely getting stronger. I mean, it's crazy. This could be really fun. That's the thing. I hope these athletes have fun. I mean, obviously there is a winning aspect to this, but the thing is, it's the long game as well. And I hope these guys, put on a show and have fun.
I want to see, like we saw with Braun, he holds up the 10 kilo, he holds up the 5 kilo, he lets the crowd do a thing. I hope that someone out there has like you said, like has a little fun with each other, looks at each other, is like, nah,
Like when Guy pretended to pee on a bar.
I also hope that there's a good selection of weight denominations available for people to make smaller, small jumps as needed and take those little risks.
So that's actually moving day. And
wait, for part B, for the Echo Bike. I mean, look.
I know. I was about to. I mean, you're ending moving day with probably a grueling workout, And let's talk about part B.
Yeah, I mean, but basically, if you're picking someone to win this, I think there's a few names that obviously filter towards the top of the expectations.
Dallin.
And I think that, between guys like Roman, Dallin, Jason, Yellow Hoste, James Sprague, any one of them could win it. I'm trying to think if there's someone else that could beat all 5 of those guys. I don't know if there's anyone else that could beat all 5 of those guys. And I think it's going to come down to very small things. Maybe the pace that they're willing to run between. Maybe one of those guys does drive the turf into the sled. How your pedals end up when you're coming back to the Echo Bike, like small, very, very small margins here. So I feel like it's just between those 5 guys, it's almost throwing a dartboard or a dart at the wall. But if I had to pick someone, I actually would pick James on this. And a sleeper I have for this is Luka Jukic.
I like Roman in this. I just think Roman, he just doesn't make. He's smart. He's smart about this. I mean, we saw it Mayhem with the 30-30-30 workout, the Mayhem up. He didn't get caught up in the whole Sprague Hopper, King of the Echo Bike thing. He ran his race, and I think he's going to do the same thing, because what you're going to have is Jason, Dallin, some of these other athletes, and they're going to look at each other. They'll be looking at Roman, but Roman's just smart. I'm not saying he's smarter than those guys. I just think he knows how to pace better. He's not going to get caught up in their games.
I love that we have very informed people in the comments here that are all choosing different athletes here. Chris Hinshaw says something that if you exceed 3 minutes, you have to pace. I think the best guys can be right in that 3-minute range on this, which means this is pretty damn close to a sprint for them. And I'm I'm going to stick with
Time cap
James.
6
But
minutes. So. The time cap 6 minutes, so they're going to have to do better than 2 minutes.
The time cap's irrelevant on this. I did the women's workout in 3:35.
Okay. All right. So.
Yeah, so I'm going to take James, and I think Luke is a good sleeper pick here. That brings us to Sunday.
Pro 5, 10 rounds for time, 1 legless rope climb, 1 rope climb, and 15-meter, 50 feet yoke carry. The pros will be a 455 yoke and women 315 challenger, 425 and 295 for the women. Time cap 14 minutes.
I love
For
this.
me, very cool workout. I love the legless to the rope climb combo. I love the yoke in competition. I also think that this is the hardest workout for me to pick a winner for. I do have some guys in mind, but I was, is there anyone that you're particularly looking at for this one?
I like Jason Hopper for this by height, but yeah, I think he is good with the yoke. Yet when he was at HWPO, had a lot of experience with strongman. They had, he's always moved a yoke really well, and then he's tall and good at pulling, good endurance. His rope climbs are great. I think there's people who are better at both of those, but not good at one of them. I don't know. We'll see. I think this is going to be so close. I think it's going to give similar to Austin and Colton at the end of that Mayhem Classic where Austin just didn't chalk and won. There's going to be probably 5 people at the end like that. I think it's going to be close.
Yeah. I like Yella. I like Yella in this one.
I don't know about him in a yoke, though. Does he move a yoke well?
Mass moves mass.
I also like Yellow hosted for this. He's the guy that I was going to pick to win it. And then I'm also excited to see BKG do this workout. He is amongst the best guys with the yoke moving it. He's very classy and efficient on a rope climb. So I would say we haven't talked about him hardly at all on this show, but if you're looking for a workout to maybe see BKG have his best finish of the weekend, I kind of like this one.
Dark horse on that, I think Nick Matthew or Annual.
Annual's pretty good on the rope climbs too. Yeah, he's got a very smooth legless and rope climb and regular rope climb. Yeah. This is a funny comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, go ahead.
Yeah, it sets up the final. So final opportunity on the weekend.
40 calories, 30 for the women, 30 burpees over block, 20 dumbbell thrusters, and 50-foot double dumbbell overhead walking lunge. Oh, excuse me.
There's no way to pick a winner on this workout. There's every single person in the top 15 could win this workout.
But they won't all win it.
I think Jeff, Austin, Dallin, you're looking at people who are just good at CrossFit.
Definitely. And Melanie's throwing Justin in the mix there. Travis from Lynn. Yeah, super fun finisher. I am curious to see at the end of the weekend, at the end of the workout, how those walking lunges go. I'm not sure if it's a long enough distance and a heavy enough weight to really cause drama and a problem here. But every time we have an overhead walking lunge at the end of a final like this, it happens. It happens to someone, and it happens to someone that you're not necessarily expecting. So
I also think if the points are very close and someone has to risk it, it'll make it a lot more dramatic of a finish. They have to be riskier and hold on longer than they want to.
Yeah, the final event of a weekend, the scenarios for athletes competing matter, but there's a little bit of a caveat to this one. So the points matter for everyone. The athletes have to get that in their mind that if they're competing for the big prize money at the end of the year and the pro cards for next year, that just because you're out of it for this competition doesn't mean that you're going to back off the pedal. Being able to finish, if 10 seconds is the difference from 10th to 20th, and you're well, I don't know how badly I want to hurt because I'm not in the position I want to be anyway. You have to recalibrate your mind and say, no, this is one of 21. Like I have just as much opportunity to gain points against my competitors for that pro card for the big payouts at the end of the year right now. And if you can tap into that, it's advantageous. The flip side of that is there's money for this event that's exclusive to this event. If you win it, you get 30 grand. And that doesn't carry over to anything else. That's just some money in your pocket. So for the people that are in the big money spots,
Close,
1 through 5, that still feel like they have a chance to earn an extra 5 or 10,000 if they beat 1 or 2 guys, those are the ones that I think start to take the risks. The curious thing about that is you think back to last year's semifinal final workout with had a lunge, and you saw people like Colton Mertens and Colin Bossard. It wasn't that they couldn't do the lunge. They just made a calculated error that cost them a lot. So if you take somebody that's in 4th, but sees a chance to finish 3rd, 2nd, or 1st and goes for it, and it doesn't work out, now you miss out on the money and you sacrifice all those potential points that we were just talking about. So the gamble will be there for some, but I think most of the athletes will have to find it to say, like, no matter where I am on the weekend, it's still worth it for me to go for it here. And it's definitely a workout that you can go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great final. I love it. I really like the programming for this event.
If I was picking a winner for this one, holy cow, that's so difficult to do.
That's what I said, and you were like, no, there's a winner, so you got to pick one.
Did you pick one?
I said I would pick Dallin, probably Dallin or Jeff, or maybe Austin. Like the top 3 would be my top 3.
Patrick?
It's just like fitness.
Yeah, I like Dallin on this. I mean, and then, I mean, Colton, he showed that he can row. I mean, 40 to 30 cal. I mean, 40 cal row. That's going to be nothing for him. The burpees.
Do you think that the best rowers can make up more time on 40 cal row on the men's side than the best people at burpees can make up on 30 burpees?
No, burpees are more important.
Yeah, I think it's almost a push.
I think each movement as you progress through this is more important than the one before.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I also think that there's a little bit of a compounding effect. When you think about that overhead position, the pull hits the backside of the upper body. The burpee hits the front side of the pecs. Even though you don't think about it, you know that it happens, especially when you're doing 30 quick. The dumbbells obviously hits the pressing overhead. And then you have to have the lunge where you need all of those muscles to stabilize as you're racing and advancing down the floor. I'm gonna go end this one with the way I started. I'm gonna pick Austin to win this one. And I just forgot who and my sleeper pick for this, if you want to call him a sleeper, is Yonakoski.
Not bad. Let's see. Go ahead, Maysa, while I think about my sleeper on this.
No, when you're asking about what's most important, I think it's a workout where you cannot win it on the row, but you can definitely lose it. Like if you send it on the row, your burpees are going to suffer. It's not, I don't think the best rower really matters.
You can lose it by going too hard, not by going too slow. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
I like that. Because the other way, you think back to West Coast final last year, Medeiros was very calculated on the bike, not too aggressive on the rings, but he picked up the lunges, went unbroken past the whole field. Yep. It was like a 1/10 of a second, but he won the workout.
Yeah, because if you finish the thrusters and take a 15 to 20 second break before you go for the lunges, you're done. Which
come on, Sagan, you know that we always have these shows that go nearly 2 hours, and we got 50 incredible athletes to talk about, 6 fun workouts, and it's still over a week away. But yeah, we want to give them some love.
I think the dark horse for me would probably be BKG. You know, these are all good movements for him. He's one of the better rowers out there. I mean, but just someone to keep an eye out on. He might be a guy who wins his heat. I don't think he'll be in the final heat, but he might be the guy who wins his heat and kind of set that time to beat where all those other athletes are coming off and they're asking BKG, hey, what'd you get? Or whatever, so, or BKG is telling Yellow, go hard on the road.
We haven't talked about him at all during the workout portion, but I also like Jay Crouch on this one.
Yeah, I was about to say Jay again. Jay's really good at all these movements as well too. So, anyways, yeah. So that's, I don't know. I mean, I think that's pretty much it, right? I mean,
Yep, almost 2
Pretty
hours breaking
much.
down the men's side. We did a little bit of explanation for Challenger and Pros and what's going on with the season at the start. If you missed that, I know there's people who are wanting to understand it and don't quite get it yet, which is understandable. I think once we see these things happen, we start to see some leaderboards. We see a points race for the season start to take shape. That'll start to formulate for a lot of people. And at the end of the day, we're right in the midst of a very, very competition dense part of the season with all these different qualifiers going on around the world for the games. A lot of these athletes have work to do this weekend. Many of them would like to get that games ticket out of the way via the online format. The best pursuits and endeavors there. Hopefully they'll all show up in good shape for a fun competition. No. Sam Quant's just going to be 5 through 10 on all of them, and that's where he's going to finish for the weekend. And I mean, look, we said it in previous shows. I think this is the most elite collection of 30 individuals that we've ever seen in a competition that only has 6 scoring opportunities. There's a lot of short workouts here, and that's on purpose because Will is conscious of the fact that most of them are doing the online semifinal. And what that means is there's a huge premium on execution, huge premium on intensity, how you warm up, how you prepare between these events. It's going to be small margins. It's going to be fast races. And, if anyone's going to be in Indianapolis next week, do your best to try to say hi to her. We'd love to see you. Maysa, final thoughts before we go?
I'm excited. This has made me more hyped about it. Now I'm like thinking about Saturday night and how awesome it's going to be.
Yeah, should be
the
fun.
The women's show will be tomorrow, same time, and I am considering not showing up because Lynn's already threatening my life. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So thanks.
Why would the
everyone,
athletes do this? Why would the athletes do this to tax their bodies? A couple reasons. The one is because some of them are on contract to do this competition, which has never existed in the sport before. And 2 is that some of them would like to be next year, which is a guaranteed opportunity to compete at multiple places around the world against high-level competition where you're getting paid to travel there, or your travel is being paid for, and you have an opportunity to earn money no matter how you finish each time with a guaranteed amount for the season. So it's a new thing for the athletes. They haven't ever had this before. We know that there's been people who've had good game seasons and lost money on the year doing that. That's not happening in WFP. So I think that for the athletes, this is at the very least a point of curiosity, but also a little bit of financial security, guaranteed opportunities for live competitions without sort of these random and not very well run online qualifiers that seem to be a problem every year. There's no, like we've said before, there's no guarantee of how this thing is going to develop or what's going to happen, or will there be a 2026? But knowing the people who are running it and having had a chance to talk to them, I feel very confident that there will be, and that this thing's got a lot of potential. The athletes obviously have given it at least the time of day to agree to the contracts. I think all 10 of the signed athlete series are out, by the way. So if you want to get to know some of these athletes off the field of play, you can do that. And they're bought into it. So yeah.
Okay.
Good question though.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Right at 2 hours. Yeah, I need to get some sleep. Got a long day ahead of me tomorrow. We have, like Brian said, alluded to, same time tomorrow we'll preview the women, and yeah, that should be even more interesting. And we'll go from there and then head right into the season. Thanks everyone for showing up today. Thanks for all the support. Thanks to HGR CBD for the support as always. The best CBD in the game. Appreciate it. Make sure you use friend 20 at checkout to get 20% off all your orders on HGR CBD. To everyone in the chat, thank you very much. It's hump day, so enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, be friendly, our friends.